Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm gonna be talking about my Jeep build, what I've done to it since I've got it, just things like that. Kind of an overview, I guess. I was planning on doing this a little while ago, at the end of 2020, but I kind of procrastinated. Stuff got in the way, and I've done a lot since then. So kind of a recap, sort of end of the year type thing. But talking about 98 Grand Cherokee that I got, I think the end of 2019, for pretty cheap. We just used it, you know, like as a grocery getter, drive to town and back. Then I got it, and stock, it was pretty beat up. Most things were broke on it. Like, it still ran and drove fine, but just a bunch of little things that kept adding up to a big headache. For starters, we redid the oil change, just basic maintenance under the hood. The gas tank was leaking, like you'd fill it up completely, and the ring on top, where it sat down, the fuel pump sat down, it was crooked and warped, and so it would just pour out gas every time you went up a hill or you filled it up too full. So we had to replace the gas tank. I had a parts Jeep that I kind of stole most of these parts off of, but we did that. Then the transfer case linkage was busted, so that we kept fighting with that. So it wouldn't go into 4 low at first, and a couple other little things here and there. But after I decided I want to build the Jeep, the first thing I really did was go get a set of tires for it. So the first set of tires I got were 29-inch tires on these stock 16-inch aluminum Grand Cherokee rims. I'm not sure exactly what tires these are. I used to know, but I've had these like basically since the end of 2019. I remember the first round in 2020 I did with these, and they actually handle pretty good. They're an all-terrain, I guess, but they just feel a little bit more aggressive than that, because I compared them. My dad's got KO2s, BF Goodrich, that he's running, and these just seem to do basically as good as them. In the mud, they slung a little bit more. I feel like these clean out a little bit better, just because it looks like deeper lugs. I'm not for sure. I could be in my head, but I've tried them out. Pretty much all the trains. The worst by far is snow. Like, these suck horribly. They're pretty much a mud train when it comes to snow. On ice, you can just forget about it. Like, I have too much power in my Jeep, and these just slide all over the place. I do not like running these snow wheeling. So they don't have a wide enough footprint. They're like a 9 across, so it's not that big of a footprint to float on the snow. My Jeep's too heavy, and these just seem to cut right down to the ice, and then I spin. So there's been plenty of times where I'm sliding down the hill because of these tires. So everything else though, sand they dig a little. I kind of bury my Jeep, but I haven't got stuck because of them. They did fine. Mud they do great. The rocks they're pretty good at. So they're all around a pretty good tire, except winter. I just can't recommend these for winter. So the next thing I want to talk about is the lift. Obviously, is the big thing about my Jeep. I've originally planned to do just a 3.5 small little lift, a cheap lift to fit some 31s under, and that quickly kind of took a turn and grew a mind of its own, because we're sitting, by measuring, it's at 5 inches of lift. By, like, the parts we bought were 4.5, but for some reason I measured my brother's stock rig to my rig. They're before he sold it, and they're basically the exact same, and with the tire difference I added it all up, and it's 5 inches of lift. So I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's just the coils sitting a little stiff, giving them time to wear down. But yeah, it is basically the makes of a Rubicon Express lift. I've got Rubicon Express coils and shocks, 4.5 inch, and then I've got the rear track bar. I didn't get it at first. I just had a recovery point front and rear, or not recovery point, relocation bracket, front and rear, and that seemed to do fine. But the front, I'm still running the recovery. Why do I keep saying that? Relocation bracket. for the track bar up front, and that seems to do great. The rear, on the other hand, it needed a track bar because it was rubbing the coil against that tire, and it was not good. I also added spacers before I get that, and they're 1.5 inch spacers. I'm still running them, but it was a Rubicon Express track bar that I put 0 to 6 inch of lift, I think it was. And it was a pain in the butt to install. That bolt did not want to come out. I spent forever on that, but finally got that installed. And then the control arms, which I don't know what to say about them. They're fine, I guess. All the original bushings were shot, so I was going to replace them even if I didn't lift the Jeep. But I couldn't at the time afford just a lift kit, so this is kind of a pieced together lift. Like I said, most of it is Rubicon Express, but this is a short arm lift, and I bought these control arms off Amazon. They're 2 different companies, because I kind of built this over a year, this lift, and I can only afford, originally, all lowers. I just got all lower control arms off Amazon. They were like, I think $200 a set, maybe 150, something like that. They weren't too bad. They fit right in, and I did everything I needed to do until we realized that the pinion in relation to the drive shaft, it was basically at the point where if I would flex too much, I would shove the drive line through the transfer case. And that was not good because the rear axle was sitting too far forward. So I saved up and I had to get some rear upper control arms, and same exact brand. And then I went for about, I don't know, half a year some more on these until I wanted to run bigger tires, and then I had to get these bright orange control arms, which are about the same amount as the black ones, but they're just a different company. I'm not sure. They are all just basic Amazon control arms. They seem to do really good. I've had really any problems with them. Most of the noises from my Jeep were just the control arm bushings bad, so now it's pretty quiet other than the other things. So that's pretty much the lift. Like I said, in the front we got the relocation bracket off eBay, and I want to save up for a track bar in the front, but right now, I mean, it works pretty good. I don't really have any problems with it. I just like to not be running that because I think that'd be a weak link. And I think that's pretty much as high as I'm going. 4.5 inch. That's all I really need. I can fit, like you can see right now, I got 33s under it. It fits fine with plenty of clearance. So as of right now, that's where I'm sticking with. So then also with ignore these tires for a second, I've got back in May a set of Toyo 31-inch mud trains, and we've been trying to figure out all these problems with them. One of them had a plug in it that we need to get patched, but they were free to set of tires, and I've been excited to run them. I've been like building the Jeep to run 31s. That was the original plan. I'm still trying to stick to that. But my brother's tire machine kind of broke, and months went by, and just thing after thing. Originally, I was planning on just swapping, because they are 16, so I kind of have to use these rims. I was just going to swap these tires off and get my 31s on. I got to thinking, it started to get closer to winter, and I got to thinking that these will do better. Even though they suck, they'll still do better than the mud trains in the snow. So I kind of put off the tires, and then I went out just like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I got a new set of the exact same rims up a town over for like $60, I think. They're pretty cheap, and I will be running my 31s on basically the identical set of these. Those will be ran basically around all throughout the summer, in the fall, and probably spring, and just I think just the winter I'm be running my 29s just for the extra grip. And then as you can see, I have 33s, 33 Swampers. They're 33 by 1050, and I wanted to see if I had the right gearing to run these at first. So I kind of just borrowed these to test out my gearing. There's 373 gears, and they seem to be fine. Like, they push it, the tires along just fine. I've had really no issues with that, no loss in power. I was kind of surprised. I was kind of thinking I had to re-gear at first before I put these on, but no, they worked pretty good. I took them out a couple areas, and they're really aggressive. I mean, they are swampers, but they're kind of a lot more aggressive than I thought. Like, I've never had swampers before, and they just kind of dig straight down. Like, if you're in snow and there's no bottom to the snow, they will just go straight down and you'll just bury yourself. Like, they don't float or anything. So I got a trip tomorrow to go out the slab, and I think it's gonna be just snowy, mud, sand, just a whole mess. And I'm taking these just because they're the most aggressive tires I have, and I want to see how they're gonna do. Hopefully I won't get stuck. We'll see if I post another video within the next week. It's because I broke something tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. But along the lines of that, I have a rear recovery point. That's like the only recovery point I have on the Jeep, is just this. It's just a flipped over hitch with a D-ring. I went to not Harbor Freight, Tractor Supply, and I got the biggest D-ring I could find. I can't remember exactly the rating, but just the biggest one they had, and saved my butt a couple times. The front, I got plans for the front, but as of right now, there are no recovery points. We have an axle to wrap around. So the axle is the only thing I have to wrap around to pull me out. It saved my butt a couple times. But I'm trying to get another front recovery point of some sort. I have my brother kind of thinking of ideas. Aftermarket bumpers for these slide in right here and kind of bolt up. So I want to do something similar to that and just have a bar, flat steel crossed with a D-ring or two. Simple, and I want to put my cover back on, the bumper cover. I only took it off to fit the 33s. But I am really kind of looking for a really cheap front recovery point. A couple times, most of the time I need to get pulled out from the rear, but a couple times, mostly in the snow, I need to get pulled out forward. So I'll be looking for that. Then I kind of skipped over this, but the transfer case, I talked in the beginning a little bit about the linkage being screwed up. I thought it was the transfer case at first, so I ended up getting a 231 out of a 99 Cherokee. All the way from Oregon, my brother went and picked it up. That's kind of a long story. But it worked fine for a couple months until all of a sudden I went up on a wheeling trip and it started popping. Just really loud, obnoxious, just banging. And the slab video, you can kind of go back and watch that. But it's the same place I'm going tomorrow. But I wasn't able to film as good as I wanted to that day because I was kind of freaking out about the random noises from under my Jeep. It would, every time I would romp on it to get up a hill, it would just bang and pop. And so we rebuilt the transfer case. It was like 150 bucks. That took a while. A lot of my older videos about talking about what went wrong with the Jeep was about the transfer case. That took way longer than it should have. The parts just kept getting mixed up, and it took multiple months to get that figured out and rebuilt. And then I have a Aftermarket Tj Linkage for 231, and I'm not for sure what brand. I wish I did. But it's just a simple, it removes all the weird back and forth nonsense the factory linkage has and replace it just with like a straight piece, and it's way simpler. So I got that done, and that my motor mounts are shot, so I need to get better motor mounts or newer ones, because it twists and the driveline hits the linkage and it creates more popping noises. Speaking of noises, this thing was kind of broken down a lot here and there. One of the things, I'm not for sure you're gonna be able to see this, but down there I've got my brake caliper held on by a coat hanger. The coat hanger basically keeps the brake caliper from flying off. There's only one bolt in the bottom. I broke that a couple trips ago in the summer, and really kind of the only fix I had. And the trip after that, I took out a CV shaft. That was not fun. That was like a 90-mile drive home with the front driver side CV shaft blown up and just popping. So I got parts Jeep CV shaft replaced, and I also went out and bought Cherokee, same spline and everything, Dana 30 U-joint shafts. So whenever I break these, not if, but when I break these CV shafts, I will be upgrading to U-joints. Personally, I think they're better. You can fix them on the trail. They're way easier. They're not this stupid mess, because all it takes is just one stick to rip that boot, and then you kind of blew up your CV joint. So that'd be nice to have a little bit of extra strength in the front end. The rear, also talking about the rear, I haven't really broken anything, but I did do a pretty good upgrade. It was a stock Dana 44 HD or Dana 44A, and that whole thing, the center inside, is aluminum, which is horrible in my opinion. I've dented it and it's been beat up a lot, and I just don't like it. I'd really like to get some regular 44s under here, but my brother did have, out of his like 97 Grand Cherokee, had a limited slip factory in the rear, so I swapped that over. Same gearing, same everything. So now I have just a limited slip in the rear, which I kind of put it in towards the end of fall, which I think was the worst time I could have put it in, because it does not help me in snow or sand. And that's all I was really doing up until now, is snow and sand, because it just buries me. Like, you don't go forward, you just go straight down, especially with aggressive tires. The snow, it's fun to drift around, but when you're just trying to stay straight on the road and you hit the gas a little too hard, your butt end starts spinning around. It's not fun. So I think I'll get most of my use out of the limited slip this year in summer in the mud. Hopefully tomorrow when we go find the mud. So it should be helpful. Hopefully. It kind of took a lot of time to put that in. Also, the front end, talking about that again, I'm kind of jumping around. I'm kind of remembering things out of order, but I had to replace... Ooh, let's talk about these first. I got hood pins. I broke the stock retainer that clips the hood in place. I still have this little safety latch, but all that stuff is removed. I took it out. It was useless. I put hood pins in. They're like 10, 12 bucks. Also, I had to replace the entire radiator, which that kind of broke that. And you have to take everything out. When I took the radiator out, I broke the headlight mounts, and that's why there's just cans holding the headlights in place until I fix it. And I kept blowing this hose, especially right here was ripped off, and on top of the motor it was broke. Fixed that, got a new hose, and then the radiator itself started leaking in like 4 different spots. Also the alternator, I blew that up. Had good parts one. I'm just fixing my Jeep with used parts off of parts rigs, so I'm just waiting for all this to crumble and not work anymore one day. So until that day comes, I'm just gonna keep fixing it with used parts. I know this is a thing with these, but the coolant sensor bad on the Vic, it just keeps popping up and beeping for no reason, and I've tried my hardest to figure out what the heck it's talking about, but I've given up. I just use it as a little light down there because it won't go away. So pretty much other than that, the engine's complete. There's nothing really wrong with it. Runs fine. Also, you may be looking at this wire. This is to my amp. Like a trip ago, I on New Year's accidentally, you can see in the video, I went up the hill, slid back on the ice, and I had 5 gallons of water in the back seat in an igloo that kind of tipped over and demolished my factory amp. And so I got a replacement factory amp for my brother. Hooked that up, and that powers my speakers, my door speakers. Get this out of the way. And then I have a second amp for my sub. Just amp I got from my neighbor. Works fine, just a mono amp. All the wiring's just kind of stupid nonsense. Hooks make it work. I got a line output converter that kind of runs to the sub. And this is how I'm going to hold my sub down, just with ratchet straps, because there's nothing better out there than just good old ratchet straps hooked to really flimsy recovery points. They're not recovery points, just tie down points. I'm just waiting for something to fail. Hopefully it'll keep it from bouncing, because it's not tied down at all. Keep it secure enough. And that was kind of the newest thing I did. So that pretty much wraps up my build. I have a CB, but kind of talked about in the other video. Just a standard unit in. Pretty much wraps up the video. I don't have too much more to talk about. But that's it as of today.